For many Detroit Lions fans, this offseason has been of paramount importance not only for the Lions' short-term, but long-term success. And there is one decision that is definitely at the top of everyone's list that is going to heavily influence how that outcome comes about. We're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. Here's the thing, folks. This is going to be probably a long episode. It's going to be a detailed episode. It's going to be kind of like, almost like, back to the DLF days where I would really get into something and I would just go all out for it. But I'm going to try my best to keep this episode within a decent amount of time because if there's one thing I know is that taking too long can sometimes get people to lose interest. So let's get into it. When we think about the Detroit Lions, regardless of who you are, regardless if you're a Lions fan or not, you have only a mild interest or you're a diehard, it has become something of a well-known fact now that the Lions have become a major player in the NFL. And that most of the decisions that they do, whether it is signing a player, not signing a player, trading, whatever the case might be, it has some sort of an important significance upon the entire scope of the NFL because a lot of the Lions' decisions right now have important impact upon what other teams are going to be doing because the Lions have not only some really big ones right now that they've got to handle, but they've got a lot of big ones that are coming up down the chain. So it's like the Lions are kind of right now at the epicenter of where a lot of big-time NFL decisions and announcements are about to be coming out from. I mean, of course, obviously we have the draft, we have all these other things that are going on, but the Lions are really kind of like at the heartbeat right now of the NFL. And when you think about it, the reason why that's the case is because the Lions have done a very excellent job over the last couple of years of building this roster essentially out of nothing. Because again, if you go back to the regime prior to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, which was Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, they completely destroyed the team from the inside out. And then Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell had to come in, literally scoop the cancer of what was their original team out, gut it, and then they had to rebuild it very quickly because it's only been 3 full years that they've been in charge. But in those 3 years, they've not only completely rebuilt the roster, but they have added more and more talent to arguably one of the most impressive rags to riches stories in terms of the NFL. And if you think about it, the process of how they've done this has been through the draft, which obviously we're getting ready for. They've drafted players like Penei Sewell, St. Brown, Jameer Gibbs, Aleem McNeil, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Jamison Williams. They have drafted a lot of great, talented players, and there's several others that I haven't even mentioned. But that's how the Lions have done this great job of rebuilding the roster. And if we know one thing about us Lions fans, we are very proud. We are very committed to that team. And for us, we have gotten very protective of our stars. We don't want them going anywhere. We want them to stay with us for the entirety of their careers. And while we have been extremely proud and protective of our players, we also have to understand that the other teams that are watching how well the Lions have done so far are getting very envious and covetous of the Lions' success and what causes that success, those young core players that we are protective of. And while all that is very impressive, for many Lions fans, the biggest thing that is kind of on their mind, and this is for the same thing with NFL analysts, is while everything is good that I just talked about, there's one decision that is going to be kind of like the first domino, if you will, to try and figure out how the Lions maintain that success. And the major roster retention decision I'm talking about is Jared Goff. To most people, when it comes to the Lions, the biggest issue is how the Lions are going to be able to retain Jared Goff to a contract. That is what is the biggest issue. It's of paramount importance. And the reason why is because how the Lions do this is going to have both immediate and long-term impact on the Lions' ability to, number one, have a strong team, but also to have success. And that impact will have a huge area of impact. Like there will be a lot of different areas it's going to have, some sort of cause on. But for many Lions fans and for many analysts, the issue for the whole Jared Goff contract thing is more to do with the fact of, okay, is Jared Goff actually worth the investment that he's reported to be in the market for? Because we've heard constantly that Jared Goff is in the market, that he is most likely going to get a contract that is between $45 to $50 million on a year. And that is causing a lot of internal controversy and debate from a lot of people, and most of it Lions fans. So realistically, it's time to have this debate settled, or at least try and settle it in the best way I know how, which is pure, honest, 100% good, logical fact. And that pretty much revolves around this one question getting answered. What is Jared Goff? Now, I know for some people, they're going to be like, well, David, that's not really a very hard question to answer. Jared Goff is a quarterback. See, I know that sounds silly and all, but depending upon who you ask, you're going to get a multitude of answers. And I will tell you this right now, from the people that I have talked to on various social media platforms, you will get an answer that will go with, oh, well, Jared Goff's a franchise quarterback. Jared Goff's the best quarterback in Lions history since Bobby Lane. Some will say that he's just a game manager or a system quarterback. And then there are some that will go so far as saying that, oh, well, Jared Goff is not even that. He's a noodle arm quarterback. He is just propped up by the system, and they will affectionately, that's not even the right word, but it's the only word I can think of, they will call him Goof. Now, that's a large spread of differing opinions on one individual as to what he is in regards to the Lions' current situation. Now, I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I possibly can to go over this. I don't want this going for very long. But let's keep this in perspective here. Jared Goff being quote-unquote a noodle arm, terrible quarterback, goof, whatever you want to call him. This makes absolutely no damn sense. Because let's understand this. In order for a quarterback to be considered terrible, you cannot, under any circumstance, say a quarterback is terrible and have him lead a top 5 offense 2 years running. That literally is an oxymoronic statement and situation right there. You can't have one and then also the other going with it. That just doesn't work. For us to have a top 5 offense, especially in this pass-happy league that the Lions are in right now currently, you have to have a quarterback that can play at a top level. You can't just have a quarterback that's just back there like a Nathan Peterman and somehow expect, yep, we're still going to have a top 5 offense. No, sir. No, ma'am. That's not how that works. It's never, ever going to work. And again, going into some of the other things that we know about Jared Goff that people want to say that, oh, well, Jared Goff's this or that. I've heard this one so many times, and I've talked about it in the past in old videos on DLF. I wish I had them, but unfortunately they no longer exist. But Jared Goff being called a noodle arm quarterback or a quarterback that can't make all the throws, first and foremost, this has already been disproven by Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson themselves. They've said that he can make every single throw on the field. No doubt on that one. But then again, just to keep this in the whole realm of the argument that we're talking about with Jared Goff just simply not having a strong arm, we have seen Jared Goff make bomb throws to several receivers with the Lions over the last 3 years, whether it's to Ben Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond, and even to DJ Chark when he was here. So this whole idea that Jared Goff, number one, doesn't have the capability or the strength to make all the throws on the field are just absolutely ludicrous. They're nuts. But to also say that Jared Goff is a terrible quarterback and to try and call him goof is ridiculous, because it's like, okay, Jared Goff got us to a conference championship game. Jared Goff has had top 10 stats the last 2 years. The Lions' offense has been top 5. To say that Jared Goff is a terrible quarterback, but yet have all those accomplishments is literally the definition of just not going to work. It's like trying to mix oil and water. It's not going to mix. So there's that. And then that kind of whole thing leads into, well, you know, Jared Goff's kind of more like an average quarterback. He's a system quarterback, a managing quarterback. He's just not really elite. Okay, well, let's also keep this in perspective. Again, you have to first and foremost take a look at what Jared Goff has been able to do since he's been in the league. I'm going to put 2 sets of stats up here that's going to show you exactly what I'm talking about here. The first set of stats you're going to see is Jared Goff's career statistics ever since he's gotten into the NFL in 2016. Take a look at these stats. The first thing you're going to notice right away is the guy has over 30,000 passing yards, almost 200 passing touchdowns, and still a pretty low interception ratio and a pretty good passer rating. The passing yards is for third most out of all active quarterbacks since 2016, and the passing touchdowns is 8 out of all quarterbacks that are still active since 2016. That's pretty impressive. Those are 2 top 10 qualifying stats for a guy that's been in the league since he got in 2016. One of them is actually top 3. Not even top 5, top 3. So think about that. So those are those stats. That's his career from his time with both the Rams and the Lions. But then if you take a look at his time specifically with the Lions, these stats I've shown before. But again, he's 4th since 2021 out of all active quarterbacks in terms of passing yards with a little over 12,000. He's 7th in the NFL out of all active quarterbacks with 78 touchdown passes. And he's 10th in the NFL with a passer rating of 96.5. So again, all top 10 stats, one of them actually being top 5. Oh, and here's the really funny part about this. 185, that right there at Jared Goff being at 78 is almost 50%. Think about that, because 90 goes into 180 twice. So if you think about it, Jared Goff is literally had, in 3 years with the Lions, has almost gotten 50% of his 8-year career total with just the Lions. That ought to show you just how productive as a quarterback he has been with the Lions. So trying to say that Jared Goff is just average either over the total of his career or with the Lions, again, just crazy. But the one thing I keep hearing is that Jared Goff is just a game-managing quarterback, or he's just a system quarterback. First and foremost, we have to get this idea that being a game-managing quarterback is supposed to be something that is not that's wrong, that's bad. The people that think that a game-managing quarterback is bad are ridiculous, because they try to say a game-managing quarterback like an insult, like a backhanded compliment. But the problem is that what is a game-managing quarterback? Or rather, what is a quarterback's job? A quarterback's job is to make sure that everything on the offense runs. Everything is doing its job altogether, and there's no hiccups. Kind of like a railroad conductor. Hey, we make sure that the train gets out of station, we make sure the train gets to the next station, it runs on time, it arrives safely. That's what an offense is supposed to be doing with the quarterback at the helm. But for many people, that is what a game manager does, and that's only what quarterbacks that can't become game changers do. But the real problem is that game changer is something that is not going to ever happen in the NFL, because the very definition of a game changer is someone who can take over a game and can win it at any point. But here's the problem. A true game changer just does not exist. You might have a player that can make a game-changing play, but you're never going to have a guy that can just literally step onto a turf and from start to finish always take over the game. Or from start to finish of a year, take over a game every single game. It's just not going to happen. So for people that are trying to say, oh, well, a quarterback has to be a game changer, that's just not realistic. So then you have to ask yourself this question, which is an issue that a lot of people have when it comes to Jared Goff and being a game manager. Is $45 million plus too much to pay for a game managing quarterback? Is it though? I'm going to ask this. Is that really too much to ask? Because you have to think about it. Again, a game manager is someone who manages the offense, make sure it doesn't really run off the rails and it doesn't fall apart. Well, if I had to think about it in terms like that, every quarterback damn near almost that has played in the NFL, especially in the modern NFL, has been and falls into the game managing category. And here's my reasoning why. Let's think about it, folks. Does a quarterback hike the ball to themselves? Does the quarterback, block for himself? Does the quarterback throw the ball down the field and then run down the field and catch his own passes? No. So think about it here. If the quarterback can't do any of that on his own, which that is what a game changer is, they can take over and do everything by themselves, then that means they can't be a game changer. They are a manager. They are somebody that takes other talent that is on the field, sometimes superstar level talent, and manages it so that way the entire offense can function. And this is where I'm going to make probably one of my biggest points in this whole episode. Think about this, folks. A quarterback is the most important position on the team. Almost everyone agrees on that. But to say that a quarterback's talent and quarterback's success is independent of everybody else in order to be successful is crazy. In fact, it's the other way around. Every single quarterback is dependent upon the rest of the team being successful so that way they can be successful. So think about it here. There's no quarterback in the entirety of the NFL history that can ever say that they stepped out on a field and said, yes, I was able to win all these games by myself. I was able to make these plays by myself. No, their ability to make plays was dependent upon having others on the field with them. Now, others are also going to try and say, well, Jared Goff is just not a match for the NFL currently right now. More quarterbacks are getting more athletic. They're getting more physically able to run and make plays that break down and, go off script. But again, I remind you that Jared Goff has done this in the past. Now, is it what he's best at? No, it's not what he's best at. He's a pocket passer. But to say that Jared Goff can't make plays off script is, again, severely overlooking the reality of the situation. There have been times when Jared Goff has been rushed. There have been times when Jared Goff has scrambled. There have been times where Jared Goff has made plays off in the game without having to be a physically dominating quarterback like, say, a Michael Vick, a Cam Newton, a Lamar Jackson, or any of the other guys. Yes, he can. Think about it. Tom Brady did it. Peyton Manning did it. How'd they do it? With this up here, their brains. Again, this 1 square foot of real estate right up here will allow you to get a lot further than most other people if you know what you're doing in a game, which is how Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were successful for decades. They were able to beat their opponents on the field with their brains more so than anything else. Well, think about it. Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson have both said that Jared Goff has the freedom, he has the ability to make checks and make audibles. And there have been plenty of times that I've watched him in games where he will make checks and he will go from a different play altogether. In fact, the Lions have stated that Jared Goff can go up to the line with any number of 3 or 4 different plays to go through. So if Jared Goff has that autonomy, he has that freedom, he has that ability to make those decisions, how is then he not a game changer? Because he can change the outcome of the game by making decisions on the field. That's my whole point there. Now again, I know some people also want to argue, well, Jared Goff's a system quarterback. The only reason he's successful is because he's in this system that Ben Johnson has built for him. There are 2 things wrong with that statement. Number 1, Jared Goff being a system quarterback, I agree he's a system quarterback, but here's a little dip Sherlock kind of moment for most people. Every single quarterback is a system quarterback. You cannot just plug a quarterback into any old system and just say, hey, this is going to work. I can't plug I would not be able to plug a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning kind of a quarterback into a Lamar Jackson system. It wouldn't work any more than it would be able to work for Lamar Jackson going into a Peyton Manning system. Systems are built around quarterback strengths. Peyton Manning was known as being a guy that would use his brain and his arm to beat you. Lamar Jackson is going to beat you more with his legs. Every quarterback has a system that works for them. And likewise, every offensive coordinator and head coach is going to curtail and build that system to that quarterback's strengths. So every quarterback is a system quarterback. And every quarterback works good in certain systems and does not work good in other systems. Hence the reason why I say what I say. But the second thing that was wrong with that statement that I just said earlier is that somehow the reason why Jared Goff has success is because it's a system that Ben Johnson has built for Jared Goff. Time out here. I seem to recall back in the summer of 2022, before training camp, mini camp, and all that other nonsense, that Jared Goff and Ben Johnson, they spent a week together building that offense. Together. Not Ben Johnson made it and then gave it to Jared Goff and said, here, you're going to run this. No, they sat down together and made the offense together. So to say that Ben Johnson is the mastermind behind Jared Goff's success here and that he's the reason the system works, first and foremost, is a fallacy of the utmost proportions. But also, second of all, I have to ask this question here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Ben Johnson was a first-time offensive coordinator when Jared Goff got a hold of him. He was developing Amon-Ra St. Brown still, because Amon-Ra St. Brown had only had 1 year with the Detroit Lions. Jameson Williams was being developed because he was a rookie who was coming off IR. And then on top of that, the very next year in 2023, we had a rookie running back and a rookie tight end. So to say that Ben Johnson is the reason why the system has been successful, but yet Jared Goff has had no hand in being successful for that system, even though he's had to develop 4 out of the 4 of the main starters that are on that offense, I think that is being extremely unfair to Jared Goff and not even taking a look at how damn important Jared Goff is to this offense. Because to say that Jared Goff has been a beneficiary of the offense rather than a big reason as to why the offense has been successful with all the things that I've just mentioned is a total discredit and a total unfair injustice to not only Ben Johnson, but also to Jared Goff. Now, like I said, then there's the next group that want to talk about Jared Goff being the best Lions quarterback since Bobby Lane. Well, I'm just going to put this out there very plainly. It's not a debate here, folks. Let's think about it. Jared Goff has done something that Stafford, and again, I love Stafford. Stafford is a great quarterback. He's a great guy. He's a great human being. But Goff has literally done the 2 things that Lions fans needed out of Stafford and that Stafford could never do. Win a division title and win a playoff game. Stafford could never do that. Now, Lions fans that are still very loyal to Goff or just don't like Jared Goff will argue, well, Stafford has more stats, he has more experience with Detroit, so that makes him better. Well, again, that's a no-dip Sherlock moment because Stafford was here for 12 years. Of course he's going to have more stats. Of course he's going to have more experience. So that doesn't matter. Then there's going to be others that say, well, if Stafford would have had, the talent and the team that Goff has, then, that would have made a difference. Well, first and foremost, let's understand something here. Let's take a look at Jared Goff's 3 years that he was here with the Detroit Lions because he's only been here for 3 years. So I decided to say, well, let's take a look at Jared Goff's stats for 3 years that he's been here, and let's pair them up to when Stafford was here for his 3 best years statistically. Let's just compare those two that way. Again, I'll put up Goff stats really quickly for the last 3 years, which again, everybody should be pretty well aware of them by now. But you take a look at those stats. Now take a look at Stafford's stats as I put them up on the screen. You're going to notice something really quickly here. There's not much difference between the two. Obviously, Jared Goff's stats were from 2021-2023. Stafford's stats are from 2015 to 2017. But yet, the statistical difference is not that much. But yet, Jared Goff played 3 less games than Matthew Stafford did in that time frame because Stafford didn't miss any of those games from 2015 to 2017. Goff missed 3. One was with an actual injury, and I think another 2 were with COVID. But just think about this. Jared Goff and Stafford are pretty much the exact same in terms of statistical output, but yet Stafford was known as Statford here. And let's think about it. Who did Stafford have to throw to in 2015 to 2017? He had a prime Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. He had Megatron for 1 year. He had Anquan Boldin for 1 year, albeit both of those guys were on their last years, but they're both Hall of Fame wide receivers. And then he had Kenny Golladay pre going to the Giants. And Kenny Golladay, before he went to the Giants, was actually a pretty good wide receiver. At least Stafford made him look like one. But who did Jared Goff have to throw to in 2001 and 2023? Well, let's first and foremost remember, again, Jared Goff had Amon-Ra St. Brown that he had to develop, number 1. Number 2, he had Jameson Williams, who he had to develop, number 2. Number 3, he had Sam Laporta, who he had to develop. And then on top of that, he had Khalif Raymond, who prior to being with the Detroit Lions was known as a punt return specialist, not really a wide receiver. And then he had Josh Reynolds. Okay, he's a decent receiver, but he's probably a tier below Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. And then he had TJ Hawkinson for a year and a half. And then he was traded to the Vikings. So if we really want to say who had the better weapons over the course of the period of time that they've been in Detroit, Stafford wins hands down. But yet Stafford's stats are not that much better than Jared Goff's. Now some people are going to say, well, but David, if Stafford had, the offensive line and all the weapons that Jared Goff had, he would have gotten us to a Super Bowl. Really? Back this train up a minute here, but how did we get Jameson Williams? How did we get Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, and all those other guys I've been talking about? Oh, that's right. We got them because Stafford demanded a trade because he was tired of being here. We got those guys because of that trade. And let's understand something here. We had to go through all that crap because, like I said, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia first and foremost screwed us over. But at the same time, we also had to eat a lot of dead cap off of Stafford's contract, which, wait a minute here, how did we free up cap space so that way we could have even some semblance of a team in 2021? Oh, that's right. Jared Goff restructured his contract. Let's just play the hypothetical game here. If Stafford would have stayed in Detroit, would he have restructured his contract? Maybe, maybe not. But then again, you still wouldn't have the draft picks that you would have gotten all those guys that I just mentioned. Gibbs, Laporta, Jameson Williams. You wouldn't have gotten those guys. So if Stafford would have stayed here, you wouldn't have all the weapons that Jared Goff has anyway. So again, you can't even compare the two. My whole point is this. There's no guarantee that if Stafford would have stayed here, if we would have somehow, some way managed to get all those guys, that it would have made any damn bit of difference. And furthermore, let's just think about this. Who was the offensive coordinator before Jared Goff got Ben Johnson? Oh, that's right. That was Anthony Lynn. I don't know if Stafford would have made it work with Anthony Lynn or not, but let's just play the hypothetical that he did. We would have never found out anything about Ben Johnson. We would have never understood or been able to get any sort of glimpse of the type of creativity he had. I'm just saying, all of this has something to bear in mind here with how we've gotten to this point in Jared Goff's impact, extremely positive impact on the Detroit Lions. So think about it. We come to the last point, the franchise quarterback, the guy that means a lot to the Detroit Lions. Is Jared Goff that guy? Well, let's put everything together here that I've just talked about really quickly. Goff took over a team that was literally dealing with all of these situations. Had a rookie head coach. I know Dan Campbell was an interim head coach for the Dolphins, but that's not the same as actually being the guy and being hired to take over the job. You have a rookie head coach, you have a rookie GM, you have a rookie wide receiver, all to start off. You have a completely decimated roster that has very little overall talent. You have been disgraced, you have been discarded by your former team, and nearly every analyst out there is doing the exact same thing, saying you're a bum, you're washed up, you're a bridge guy, you've got no career left in the NFL. And then once you get to Detroit, most of the fan base turns hostile against you. They blame you for every loss, even though you got nothing to work with, and you're even being booed on the field because you can't win with a ragtag team. Yet despite all that I just mentioned, Jared Goff persevered. He stayed loyal to Campbell and the program. He stayed loyal to the process. He remained professional and even cordial with negative media and fans. But yet, let's understand something here. How many quarterbacks that I know of have been able to maintain that pressure, maintain that persecution, and not only not lash out against those people, but again, remained professional despite being called the scapegoat, despite being called the reason why everything was falling apart? And yet, despite, again, all that, Jared Goff put up 2 top 10 seasons of his own accord while producing also two top 5 offenses. Led the team to a division crown for the first time in 30 years. Led us to 2 straight home playoff games for the first time in nearly 70 years. And led us to a conference championship game for the first time in 30 years. But yet, supposedly, there are less educated Lions fans and analysts that want to say that Goff has reached his ceiling, that there's no more we can potentially get out of him, which is exactly the same thing they said 3 years ago, mind you, and that Jared Goff can't survive in this current day and age because, well, if we sign Jared Goff, he's not going to be able to retain the players, he's not going to be able to make it in the NFL anymore because the game is getting more fast, it's getting more physical, we have to have a mobile quarterback, blah, 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 and that Jared Goff is simply not talented enough to get the Lions to a Super Bowl. But yet, remind me, Jared Goff got the Cal Bears program back up on its feet when he was in college. He got the LA Rams program back up on its feet and got them to a Super Bowl. Got the Lions program back up on its feet and got them to a conference championship game. So everything that you say Jared Goff can't do or hasn't done, he has done and he can do. So when people are asking, is it foolish for the Lions to invest $45+ million in a guy that most people would like to say is a system or a game-managing quarterback, again, I would ask you the question to make sure you keep that perception of a game-managing quarterback not negative, but actually positive, because every quarterback is a game manager assisting quarterback in some facet. But also, number 2, let me ask you this question. What's more foolish? What is more foolish is, should the Lions let Jared Goff, a quarterback that's in his prime, walk out the door and not pay him $45+ million when right now that might be a lot of money, but in 2 to 3 years when the salary cap keeps jumping up $15-20 million a year, it's going to be a cakewalk of a contract, and after you sign him to an extension, you're going to get $30 million back in new money? What's more foolish, doing that or giving the entire offense of the Lions to a 27-year-old, unproven, untested quarterback in Hendon Hooker? What is more sensible? Again, go back to what Brad Holmes said. It is a lot easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better. So you have a quarterback that's he's battle-tested, he's proven, and you want to get rid of all that because you don't want to pay him a contract right now, which in a couple of years is going to be very, very manageable. I'm sorry, but to me, the time is now. The decision is easy. Jared Goff is the franchise quarterback. He deserves to get paid. End of discussion. End of debate. This is not putting your hands into the fire and, wondering if this is going to have a backfire effect on us. Every deal in the NFL has that effect. But it would be much more of a stupid, foolish decision if the Lions just let Goff walk out the door because they aren't willing to take that risk. It's the NFL. It's a business. Every decision has inherent risk. You just have to decide which one has less risk. And for me, having Jared Goff long-term is the lesser of 2 options. You go with what's less of a risk. Keeping Goff in town is the less of the 2 risks. But anyway, that's my point. I'm going to end the episode, and I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you liked what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed, you now had a chance to do so. Again, please subscribe. It helps out the channel. But also, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Also encourage y'all, please, to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. So let's please share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere we can with everybody and anybody that we can. The more we share it, the greater the channel grows and spreads. And with that being said, hope you all got something that makes you happy, makes you smile. Hope you all are doing very well in your world today. Hope you enjoyed the content. And with that, God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.